What's it thinking, Colonel?
Question for the class. What's the theme of the bug type? The theme of the bug type is that they suck.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
Steady. Steady. Whoosh. Caught one. Caught what? A new viewer, you! Welcome to our very first Pokemon Archetype tier list. Beginner bugs with me, the bug catcher, who I don't think is looking at the camera correctly. What is a beginner bug? That's a good question, and one that the chatters in this live stream relentlessly will actually lead me on for about an hour. So this is actually the 4th iteration of the template. Link in the description if you want to make your own. After much deliberation, the chat and I came to an agreement, a concord. According to me, Bugcatcher, premier authority on bug types, a beginner bug is a bug type, obviously, that joins their team usually quite early. They usually evolve at a fairly low level, and they have a big power spike. However, the peak of their power is generally quite low compared to real Pokemon. That actually probably shouldn't be in quotes, compared to real Pokemon, because I think you knew this when you clicked on this video. Spoilers, most of these Pokemon suck. Now you can hem and haw until the Miltank come home about what exactly counts as early enough, right? I mean, don't you actually catch Heracross earlier than some Pokemon on this list? Why isn't Heracross on the list? Can't you actually do Mystery Gift Arceus with an Insect Plate and get that earlier than some Pokemon here? Please stop, okay? We're gonna rank these Pokemon. If there's a Pokemon you think should have been on the list, well then you should have been here in the live, okay? I hope to see you at the next one. What are the criteria for our rankings? I believe that all of the archetype tier lists that we're going to do will probably use similar criteria. We're actually going to be ranking these Pokemon against each other, and not necessarily all Pokemon as a whole. So because of that, that means that some of these terrible Pokemon will actually get to be in the top tier, even though most of these on like a real tier list that includes real Pokemon that aren't just trash can bugs would probably not break like the top thirds. Most of these are pretty bad. For these archetype tier lists, we are going to be very generous with how we award credit. So we're going to give these Pokemon credit for anything that they do that is useful in any context, whether in your in-game playthrough or in competitive. You would expect that because these Pokemon have overall terrible stats, they would not be that useful in competitive because you would just use good Pokemon like Tyranitar or something. But you might use these guys in the early game of your playthroughs. Oh, maybe that's what makes them beginner bugs. Ooh. Concerning designs, I'm not actually going to give any credit, whether positive or negative, but I probably am going to comment on designs almost certainly negatively. And when I'm talking about in-game performance, I'm also usually considering the generation these Pokemon were introduced in. Not strictly, they do get credit for every generation they appear in, but usually I'm just considering their debut generation. Fair warning now, the later generation Pokemon, somewhat Gen 7 and most definitely Gen 8 and 9, are going to be disadvantaged in in-game performance just because of the structure of their games. They don't really have a place for these early filler Pokemon, and also the games they're in suck ass and I don't want to play them, which means I don't have that much experience with them. Pretty unfair to the bugs themselves. You can blame Game Freak for that. So what are the actual tiers? At the very top we have Metamorphosis. And now if the Bug Hunter hero actually reaches level 6 and gets Metamorphosis, the game is probably over, so you may as well concede. You can think of Metamorphosis as the very useful tier, So Pokemon that go in Metamorphosis are very useful, either as an early game carry, what this archetype is sort of intended for, or they have some sort of very useful niche in competitive in whatever tier they're in. Probably Sticky Web. One tier below that we have Good Infestment. I guess you could describe these Pokemon as good. Not necessarily top picks, but Pokemon that you could use in-game without, like, having to carry them. And maybe they can do something useful in your competitive battle. Your opponent won't just get stun-locked by laughing at your team if you have a good Infestment Pokemon on there. Then we have the B tier. We'll just say these Pokemon are average. For a bug. On a larger tier list, this B tier would probably already be the D tier for like below average. Below the B tier, we have the struggle bug tier. Things are getting dire. On a larger tier list, this would probably already be the bottom tier. For struggle bug, I'm gonna say that we're making excuses to not put them in the lowest tier, Aaron's Finest. How bad does a Pokemon have to be in Aaron's Finest? Spoilers. Ledibuz's gonna be in Aaron's Finest. That's how bad. I should also explain why in the world we called the bottom tier Aaron's Finest. What I would expect every viewer of this video to know is Elite 4 Bug-type Specialist, Aaron. That part's easy. However, there's also a Fire Emblem character named Aaron. Neither Aaron is spelled this way, by the way. We did AA, just to make sure that it's spelled wrong for both contexts. The Fire Emblem character Aaron is actually part of an archetype in that franchise called Jagans, which almost maps onto the Pokemon archetype for beginner bugs. So both of these archetypes are characters that are very strong in the early game, and then get weaker as the game progresses. And the Fire Emblem Aaron, not to be confused with the other Fire Emblem Aaron, is probably the worst of the Jagans, so that's why he gets to be here. Something that is going to apply to all of the Pokemon we talk about today. Because they are all bugs, they do all share the bug type. Why am I showing you the type chart? Let's talk a little bit about themes for types. Don't worry, this is not going to be another PowerPoint presentation. Usually types have themes. Electric types, they tend to be really fast. Steel types, they tend to be really sturdy, borderline invincible. Question for the class, what's the theme of the bug type? Don't worry if you don't know the answer, because I'll tell you. As the foremost authority on bug types, I'll tell you now, no cap! And from the bottom of my heart, the theme of the bug type is that they suck. It is very much on purpose that the bug type is god-awful. They tend to have bad stats, but usually the good bugs, like Scizor, are good despite being bug types, and not because they're bug types. If you clicked on this Pokemon archetype tier list, I'm sure you already know the bug type matchups, but I'm just gonna give you a refresher. Fair warning here, some viewers may find the following section disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised, okay? I'm gonna say that this is rated M. So bug type has actually changed quite a lot. In Gen 1 only, it was offensively super effective against poison. And it was also weak to poison. And then both of those interactions were removed in Gen 2. So it's now no longer weak to poison. How generous. However, it is also no longer good against poison. It is instead good against the new dark type. Okay. So this was bug for about half of Pokemon's history by now. In terms of offense, you are effective against grass. Who cares? You're effective against psychic. Oh, okay. You're effective against dark. That one's actually pretty useful. You are not very effective against fighting, flying, poison, ghost, steel, and fire. You are resisted by 6 types. That's horrible. Defensively, it's also really bad. Weak to flying, that's a problem. Weak to rock is a huge problem because that means you're weak to stealth rock. And weak to fire is generally quite bad because fire attacks are everywhere. Resisting fighting and ground, that's actually really good. Resisting grass, who cares? So as you can see here, in the beginning of Pokemon, Bug was in a really, really rough spot. They desperately needed a buff, and in Gen 6 they attempted to rebalance the type chart a bit by adding a Meta Breaker type in Fairy. The main goal of Fairy was to hold down dragons, but it also did regulate other types as well. They also beat fighting types, which were very, very dominant, and they are weak to poison, and poison was quite weak. Fairy type does actually interact with bugs. Bugs are actually super effective against... Oh. Fairy actually resists bug. Why? If any type didn't need a nerf, it was bug. Why? At the very least, Game Freak, I'm begging you, make bug resist fairy. Come on. If you don't like bugs, what? Who doesn't like bugs? Maybe grab your fly swatter.
And smash that like button to help increase the reach of the video.
And I guess also squash some of these bugs. And although there's heaps of fan art for a bug-type evolution, none actually exist. However, with the link in the description, you can evolve into the mighty Patreon, which you should see on your screen now. Thanks to all the Patreons for your support. You hear that chime? That means the bug catching contest has begun. Well, let's bug catching. If you're playing along at home, I expect you to also have your nets out. Let's rank Butterfree. Caterpie! I fully expect people to complain about some Pokemon that are or aren't on the list, but I don't think anybody will debate. Caterpie and also Weedle are definitive beginning bugs, right? They join you super early, and look at these Evo levels. Level 7 to Metapod, level 10 to Butterfree. It's a beginner bug. Stats-wise, I mean, this is abominable, but it's a Caterpie, what did you expect? Good luck with your 30 attack tackle. Metapod Evo actually reduces its attack by 15? They really had no mercy here. But hey, at least you get 55 defense, oof. Your speed also goes down to 30. But hey, you only have to put up with Caterpie for like 3 levels, and you only have to put up with Metapod for another 3, because hey, only level 10 and you get to Butterfree. Butterfree's stats in Generation 1 to 5 are, well, they're good for level 10, right? Which is sort of the point of this whole archetype. Defensively, this is just trash. You're gonna die instantly to everything. You're also a bug-flying type. But if you look at the offensive stats, 70 speed and 80 special attack, for that point in the game, that's actually quite good. And they recognized that Butterfree was too weak. And in Generation 6, they did give Butterfree a buff, and it is actually a meaningful buff. They went ahead and gave it plus 10 special attack. So you now get 90 special attack at level 10, which is, hey, not that bad. I think the most positive things we said about Butterfree were various versions of not bad. Basically nothing that was a glowing endorsement. Are you ready? Metamorphosis, baby! Butterfree is one of the best Pokemon that we are going to be ranking today. And it's not because of the typing, and it's not because of the stats. It's because of the moves! And the ability, I guess. Butterfree gets all 3 of the status powders. It gets Poison Powder, which you would never use. Stun Spore, which you might use, I guess. And Sleep Powder, which you would definitely use. 75 accuracy is pretty shaky, but remember, Butterfree doesn't have our feeble human eyes. It's got those buggy compound eyes, which makes, I think, Sleep Powder over 90% accuracy. It's basically Spore. Can miss, but it probably won't. And having an auto sleep off of, was it 70 or 80 base speed? 70 base speed, I mean, that's still pretty good. I think that's actually the same as Breloom. having a Pseudo Spore is really, really useful. It allows you to have a gigantic edge against any Pokemon, particularly that's slower than you, because you can just set them to sleep. You will almost always get a turn advantage from that because they'll always be asleep for at least one turn. And what do you do while they're asleep? I mean, your stats are pretty terrible. Bug Stab is horrible. I mean, you can try and do a Compound Eyes Hurricane. I mean, that's like kind of okay, but you only have 90 special attack. Press Quiver Dance. Press Quiver Dance! Probably gonna put you in a pretty good spot. In most later gen in-game playthroughs, you probably wouldn't use Butterfree. And although it does have Powder Quiver Dance, that's definitely just a lower tier thing for competitive, because you're not gonna be able to do this against the big boys. They're just gonna kill you. But in the lower tiers, yeah, this is actually pretty scary. In Generation 1, you actually would use Butterfree in-game, particularly if you're a Charmander picker. Getting Confusion upon evolution into Butterfree, even though it's not stab and even though your special attack isn't great, this is actually extremely useful because remember that most of Generation 1 is poison types. So this Confusion actually does double damage against almost everything, and Red and Blue Brock doesn't even have rock moves. So this is actually your best bet. And you can use Butterfree for the entire game, and it's actually kind of reasonable. As with many of the bugs we're going to be talking about today, one important thing to note about Butterfree is that it actually levels up really fast. So although its base stats are, kind of terrible, you are typically going to be several levels ahead of what another Pokemon with better stats would be, given the same amount of experience. And that helps pad out Butterfree's stats a little bit. They're never going to be great, okay? Let's not huff that tropium too hard. But they might be a little bit better than you would expect. Butterfree didn't get a Mega Evolution, but it did get the worst gimmick, a Gigantamax form. Gigantamax as a mechanic I think is just a colossal failure. I did phrase that intentionally. Mainly because it is a rich get richer scenario. Megas can change a lot about a Pokemon, but the only thing that Gigantamax does is it doubles your HP. But you are probably taking more than 100% damage from your enemy's attacks anyway because your typing and your defenses are horrible. So increasing your max HP still might not let you live a hit. And the only other thing that Gigantamax does is it changes one of your moves. Wow. So if you Gigantamax your Butterfree, you get G-Max Befuddle. Apparently in Japanese it's called, Kyodai just means huge. Enchantment.
Enchantment?
Enchantment! G-Max Befuddle inflicts damage to target and causes poison, paralysis, or sleep to all opponents. And it's a bug type move. Yeah, good luck with this one. It's not the worst move ever or anything, but keep in mind that if you're G-Maxing your Butterfree of all things, you're not G-Maxing a different Pokemon. And pretty much any real Pokemon is going to be better than Butterfree. Now let me be clear. This move is actually pretty good, but it's locked to Butterfree, who sucks, so you'll never see it. G-Max is also particularly bad on Butterfree because a lot of Butterfree's utility comes from its powerful status and setup moves, which don't really do anything when you G-Max. G-Max Befuddle is right. What were they thinking? Although G-Max is dead and buried, RIP, not that anyone will miss it, this effect does still exist. It is on Dire Claw, which is on Sneasler, an actually good Pokemon. With that, I think we'll say, bye-bye Butterfree. But shed no tears for Butterfree, it is in the highest tier. Happy ending for Butterfree, which means you've got plenty of tears welled up for Beedrill, cause my god, this thing sucks. There's literally a B tier, and that is actually not where we're putting Beedrill. First form is Weedle. This is another completely non-controversial beginner bug. You get it early, level 7 to Kakuna, and level 10 to Beedrill. In Japanese, Weedle is actually called Beedle. Is there a character named Beedle? Whoa, wait, look at the chat. What a coincidence. All these donations. Well, I just have one thing to say to that. Thank you! Compared to its counterpart Caterpie, Weedle has 5 more attack, hooray, and 5 more speed, wow. However, its move pool is worse because it has Poison Sting, which is horrendous. Even though it is super effective against enemy poison types in Gen 1. I can't believe I'd rather have Tackle. Oh, God. Evolving into Kakuna, same deal as Metapod, where you actually lose attack and speed, but you gain defense, thanks. Don't have to put up with this for long, because only level 10 until you get to Beedrill. Kuna's Japanese name is literally Cocoon, by the way. Do you know there's actually a movie called Cocoon with Wilford Brimley? Don't know who that is? You actually do.
Diabetes.
And when you finally reach level 10, I guess you've crafted that Cocoon into a mighty Spear. Beedrill's Japanese name is just Spear. Now, Lances are actually pretty good in Fire Emblem. Is Beedrill good in Pokemon? I'm asking you, but you already know the answer. Stats from Gens 1 to 5. Well, 80 attack and 75 speed. That's actually not that bad, again, especially for this part of the game where you're expected to have Beedrill. However, do remember, this is a bug poison type, which is one of the absolute worst offensive stab combos in the game. You can't do anything to anyone. You may as well not try. It did actually get a buff going from Gen 1 to Gen 2. In Gen 1, it only had 45 special because special attack and defense were the exact same stat. But in Gen 2, they did split special attack and special defense. The 45 special became a paltry 45 special attack that does nothing. You should never use this. However, that 45 special did get buffed up to 80 special defense.
The magic ends here.
65 HP, 40 defense. You were never surviving a physical hit ever, but you actually might survive a special one. And just like with Butterfree, in Gen 6, it actually received a buff. It gained 10 more points in its attack. I'm not gonna say that made it viable, but if you're gonna give it 10 points in something, attack is probably the stat to put it in. I think Beedrill got another buff in Gen 6. There's like a mechanic they included called Mega Evolution or something. So Mega Evolutions sort of have rules to them. With Mega Evolutions, you're allowed to give a Pokemon up to 100 base stat total increase. Unless you're Mega Alakazam for some reason, who they only gave 90. Why? Now you'll notice here, Beedrill's base stat total post-buff is 395. For a fully evolved Pokemon, this is horrendous. For context, the starters are usually around 535 at their final evo. So giving 100 BST would only bring you up to 495, which is still below most normal real Pokemon. So I don't really think that giving a boost of 100 is actually going to make this thing usable at all. I can't believe it. Hey, these stats are actually incredible. This is another example of why Mega Evolution was by far the best gimmick, because it actually lets you change complete garbage like Beedrill and actually make it usable. For many Pokemon, their BST is actually kind of misleading because they have dead stats. This 45 special attack, this may as well be 0, right? You are never using this. And Game Freak, they were very clever when they gave it the Mega, because although they still only give it an increase of 100, it still only goes to 495 BST, which is terrible. That 45 special attack may as well be 0? Yeah, it may as well be 0. Let's take that 30, let's put in attack and speed. So you can see here, none of its stats change except for attack and speed, and special attack, which goes down. They just min-maxed it. And you know what? It still wasn't that good. But we can say, thanks to the Mega Redemption, this is not Aaron's finest, okay? I think this does qualify as a struggle bug. For in-game, you would never use this in any generation ever. It's terrible. But in some of the lower tiers, back when Megas existed, and Megas are coming back, guys, the main thing holding Mega Beedrill back is that although Megas can change your type, they elected not to change Beedrills. In fact, they arguably doubled down on its typing because they gave it the incredibly good ability, Adaptability. Adaptability doubles your stab bonus, so instead of your stab moves dealing 1.5, they actually deal 2x. However, your stabs are bug and poison. Two of the worst in the entire game.
If Beedrill had a real typing, it definitely would have been in B. Maybe even good infestment. But bug poison, there's kind of a limit to how good you can be if you actually intend to attack. Beedrill does actually need to attack. It doesn't have any utility of any sort. And as a bug poison type, you're just not going to be doing that in any serious context. We didn't cover Beedrill's moves in depth, but unlike Butterfree, who gets a ton of extremely powerful utility and boosting options, Beedrill gets basically nothing. You can Sword Stance, and that'll boost your bug and poison moves. Hooray. I guess you could use Toxic Spikes, and because you yourself are grounded, you also absorb Toxic Spikes, so points for that. But usually you want your spikers to be defensive, and Beedrill's defenses are god-awful, so you wouldn't use it for that. And it's not fast enough, really, to make use of Focus Sash for spiking. But at least the Spear has a drill tip, because you do get Drill Run. That's about the most notable thing I can say about Beedrill's move pool. This applies to all Megas in Gen 6, but it's especially pertinent to Beedrill because its speed swing is so intense. Remember that in Gen 6 when you Mega, you don't get your new speed instantly. You actually get it next turn, which meant that in Gen 6 at least, Mega Beedrill was basically forced to run Protect, because otherwise you would be way too slow. And you didn't have to do that anymore in Gen 7. And then in Gen 8, they removed Megas. God damn it! Hola! It's our next Pokemon, Adios. Channel veterans probably know what we're going to say about this Pokemon at some point during our review. Here's Spinarak, the first form of Ariados, with a weirdly late Evo. It's actually stuck as Spinarak until level 22. It's kind of late. Spinarak's stats are better than Weedle's at least, right? Look at this. This is almost double the attack. Wow. Oh, these numbers are bad. Level 22, you do evolve into Ariados. Ariados' stats are better, right? Better is relative, right? 90 attack, that's actually fine. 40 speed, that is not fine. That is trash. But Ariados did get a buff in Gen 6. Just like with the other bugs we talked about, it got a 10-point stat bump, and it got that stat bump exactly where it needed it. Plus 10 special defense.
The magic ends here.
Well, now it's viable. I know we had those Game Freak leaks. Is there any more info on the secret meeting where they sat down and decided, okay, Ariados is too weak, let's give it 10 more special defense? How do we sum up Ariados? Say it with me. Horrible typing! Horrible stats! Horrible moves! Just awful! Aaron's finest. You'll notice that type, stats, and moves is basically everything. Ariados is god-awful, and there's basically nothing it can do that is useful in any context. Well, actually, I didn't include its ability. Swarm or Insomnia? Mediocre ability! There's a reason that basically every ROM hack that features Ariados and intends to make it usable has to seriously overhaul it. The template of Ariados is so fundamentally rotten that you can't fix it without making basically an entirely different Pokemon. This thing is unsalvageable. Probably the best buff I've seen while keeping the soul of Ariados intact was giving it a unique version of Swarm that gives all other bug Pokemon a +1 attack. I'm kidding. The best buff I've seen was probably the Crystal Legacy, where they just doubled Ariados' speed. So it went from 40 to 80, which, yeah, makes it okay for what it is as a beginner bug. I probably would also drop its evolution level a bit. I think 22 is way too high for what you get. I think level 12 or 15 for the Evo into Ariados. Yeah, you might use it for like a gym or two and it would be okay. Grand Coliseum actually gave Ariados some huge buffs. They completely overhauled its stats and they gave it Intimidate. But at that point, is it even still Ariados? Can this thing do anything? Well, it's a bug poison type, so you can forget about actually attacking things. However, it does actually get some pretty decent utility moves. You do get access to Toxic Spikes,
And you do get access to Sticky Web. This is actually the first Sticky Web we're talking about. Sticky Web is a super powerful entry hazard that drops the speed of any incoming grounded Pokemon. That's great. Why would you set this with Ariados? You wouldn't, but you technically can? And we would be remiss not to mention Ariados' insane signature move of Toxic Thread. Whoa, what does this do? So Toxic Thread is actually incredibly powerful. It compresses String Shot and Toxic. So you both drop your target's speed and you inflict deadly toxic poison on them. There must be an error on Bulbapedia. This just says normal poison. There's no way that a move called Toxic Thread would inflict normal poison, the most worthless status. There's no way, right? It's not true. That's impossible! It is normal poison. You would never use this. If you want to experience Toxic Thread yourself, you don't need to suffer through Ariados. You can just go to 4chan. Or Reset Era. I only recently discovered Reset Era. It's so strange. If you go to 4chan, everybody is absolutely unhinged, but at least you know this is their true character. On Reset Era, it's so unsettling. Everybody is walking on eggshells because they don't want to be banned. I've never seen as many bizarro opinions as on Reset Era. They're basically not allowed to talk about things that are obviously wrong with games. It's so strange. I say this as somebody who has no problem silencing dissenting opinions and creating an echo chamber. What's wrong with an echo chamber when it's echoing my own sentiments?
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
Welcome to the Imported Cheese channel. Democracy. Without any of the haters. There's zero reason to ever use Toxic Thread. Dropping your opponent's speed by 1 stage is not going to help because your speed is terrible to begin with. They also buffed String Shot so that it's 2 stages. You don't even get that. And as for the poison effect, you would much rather inflict Toxic, and the 100% accuracy of Toxic Thread does not matter. You don't have to worry about missing Toxic with Ariados because Ariados is a poison type, and poison types always hit Toxic. Apparently, Ariados was a gimmick anti-lead in Gen 4 Ubers, where you could Sucker Punch Deoxys in the face. And also in a meta sense, Sucker Punch your opponent because who the hell uses Ariados? Sounds about as viable as one with nothing against Owling Mine. Sounds terrible. But hey, Darkrai can't actually sleep Ariados with Dark Void because Ariados has insomnia. And hey, you're actually giving Darkrai a taste of its own medicine because it faces the nightmare of losing to Ariados. Gen 4 competitive is actually where the competitive scene started to become a lot more visible. I mean that in a literal sense, because this is where people started recording everything. There was the big Wi-Fi battle boom that happened in Gen 4, and I think we actually do have some footage of Darkrai versus Ariados here.
Vamos. Bien hecho. Seguido. Adios.
Adios. Incredible graphics for the Nintendo DS, although maybe pushing that E rating a little bit. Ledian! I mean, I guess we'll talk about it. Well, it starts off as Lediba, and in Lediba's defense, this thing is adorable. This is one of the cutest bugs. I actually think this thing is very, very cute. And hey, its evolution is earlier than Ariados by 4 levels. And Lediba's stats, 80 special defense. As a basic Pokemon, that's really high. We haven't seen a stat that high so far on a first form. That's gotta go even higher when it evolves into Ledian, right? Oh my god! 110 special defense! We actually haven't seen a number over 100 yet.
The magic ends here.
No buffs needed here, capped res. If I had to pick a worse stat in Pokemon, it's probably special defense. And this special defense stat is actually worthless because 55 HP is terrible. 50 defense is terrible, so they can kill you with any physical move. And by the way, you're a bug flying type, so you take quadruple damage from like everything. This is so bad. You're gonna try and be defensive with one of the worst defensive typings in the game? I don't think so. Oh my god, somebody shared the mod pointed out, this BST looks like Fire Emblem growths. That's true. That's not a good thing, by the way. Hey, 85% speed growth. Well, at least it gets good utility moves, right? Baton Pass, Agility, Safeguard, Non-Stab Mach Punch. Where's Sticky Web? Where's Sticky Web? Control F. Sticky Web. Sticky Web. 0 out of 0. 0 out of 0 is right. Oh! I don't think there's any hope for Ledian. I think that Game Freak knows it's a joke, and they're going along with it. They gave it Iron Fist. Iron Fist. On a Pokemon. With 35 base attack. They knew. They're just mocking Ledian. They're in on the joke. This thing has 4 arms and less than 40 attack. You can't even get 10 points of attack per arm. Also hilarious that Early Bird is just bad Insomnia, but it's not strictly worse because you can rest and Insomniacs can't. Oh, there's something we overlooked though. What's Ledian's classification? The 5-star Pokemon! Guys, we gotta rate Ledian. Five stars. 5 stars by IGN, maybe. Ledian is beyond redemption. It is terrible. The only thing it excels at is being the target of mockery. It's definitely meta for that. Beautifly and Dustox. Both of these start out as Wurmple. Fun fact, I went to the Pokemon Center in Tokyo before Brilliant Daipa came out, and they were recruiting for Team Galactic. I took their recruitment test, and apparently, my starter Pokemon as a Galactic Grunt was Kemuso. Kemuso, more like Kuso. Oh, terrible. Unlike with Caterpie and Weedle, Wurmple is actually a split Evo, and I do believe it has a unique criteria for the split. Evolves into its cocoon form at level 7, just like Caterpie and Weedle. And what determines whether it goes into the Silcoon and Beautifly path, or the Cascoon and Dustox path, is its personality value. As personality values can be influenced or seen by the player, what a given Wurmple will evolve into is essentially random. Great. I'll tell you right now, whichever path you go, there's no jackpot, okay? Level 10 to reach your final form of either Beautifly or Dustox. Stats-wise, ooh, you get more attack than Caterpie, but less speed. 20 speed is really bad. I think this is tied with some of the cocoons we've seen, right? Ugh. For Silcoon, your speed drops even lower. It is 15. We are approaching Shuckle levels here. 55 defense, though.
Break yourselves upon my body.
I think Cascoon is the special version of this. I think so. No, Cascoon has the same stats. Here's Beautifly's stats. They're very reminiscent of Butterfree's. It actually had that amazing 90 special attack that Butterfree would later get. But Beautifly just starts out with that. Oh, and 70 attack, which was kind of relevant back before the physical special split. Remember, this is a Hoenn Pokemon. I think this does actually qualify as, yes, a slow, frail, mixed attacker. Oh, God. And in Gen 6, they buffed it. What stat did they give it? Hey, 10 to special attack. We actually get to see a number in the hundreds. Hooray. I mean, that is a buff. Although this 70 attack is now useless. Big negatives for Beautifly. If I were to describe
Beautifly in a phrase, it would be budget Butterfree. Hearing that, you should be quivering. I expect you to get +1 special attack, special defense, and speed. Budget Butterfree is not a phrase you want to be associated with. You also don't want to be associated with the phrase age hunt. Beautifly exposed. It's actually Agehuntful. Just like the Final Fantasy XIV samurai ability Ageha. That actually does come from butterflies. It's a type of butterfly. It's kind of a vicious name, right? What does the Pokédex say? It has an aggressive nature. It stabs prey with its long, narrow mouth to drain the prey's fluids. Oh, that's pretty scary. Alright, give me your best Beautifly impressions. Come here, prey!
It's sucking me dry.
Suck. Speaking of things that suck, this move pull is terrible. It misses out on arguably Butterfree's most important trait, which is Compound Eyes Powders. It does not have Compound Eyes, it just has Swarm. And it doesn't have the ability to disable the opponent and then be able to Quiver Dance. It has worse speed and worse defenses. So, although it technically learns Quiver Dance, you are never using this because you instantly die. It also doesn't get Hurricane. I'm sick of Far Cry. I can't believe they're still making those. Well, get ready for Far Cry 9 or whatever, because this thing is a far cry from Butterfree. You'd think they would be similar, but they're really not. This thing is so bad, and it doesn't even have that niche of actually being a useful early power spike. It's either Aaron's Finest or in the Struggle Bug. We'll see where it ends up. I'm thinking it's just barely struggling to make it into Struggle Bug. It does have 100 special attack. However, it is literally on Aaron's team, right? We wouldn't want to make Aaron sad. Yeah, we'll put him in Aaron's Finest. But I could see it in Struggle Bug. Hey, did you know that Beautifly is actually the better outcome? You'll never guess what stat Dustox prioritized that makes it bad. You might actually guess. 90 special defense!
The magic ends here.
Way too much special defense. Way too little of anything that's actually useful. 60, 70, 90 bulk is not impressive at all. 50, 50, 65 offenses are hopeless. Hopeless! But it's got good utility moves, right? Nope. Oh, watch out for level 15 Poison Powder. This Pokemon learns no moves by breeding. You can just say this Pokemon learns no moves. Its abilities do nothing to save it either. Shield Dust, oh, strictly better than Inner Focus. And Compound Eyes, which is normally good, but you don't actually have Sleep Powder. Who cares about Compound Eyes Poison Powder? We saw this thing most recently in Grand Coliseum. And hey, Dustox itself doesn't even want to be there. All it does is spam Mementos, the Fresh Maker, in order to get itself off the screen as fast as possible. The nicest thing I can say about Dustox is that it actually has a pretty high XP yield, and it's really weak. So it's really easy to kill, and you get a lot of XP for doing it. Unfortunately, this also gives you special defense EVs, which you probably don't want. But I guess that's the price you have to pay. We were somewhat debating with Beautifly. There's no debate here. This thing is Aaron's Finest for sure. This might actually be the worst Pokemon we talk about today. One of them. Zero offensive potential, absolutely zero utility. This thing is actually worthless. I actually think it's worse than Ledian. Ledian has 85 speed. It can maybe set up a light screen. Dustox does nothing. None of you have used Dustox in Gen 3 ZU, and it shows. Don't worry, guys. Dustox is a terror of Gen 3 ZU. Dustox is a poison type, which means it can't be poisoned. However, you in the chat probably can. We're testing a new virus. Go ahead and take a deep breath. That tropium haze. Dustox, Meta Tyrant of Gen 3 ZU. Why is there even a ZU? There's not even that many Pokemon in Gen 3. We've just gotta make up new tiers to try and possibly get Dustox to do something somewhere. No, this thing does nothing anywhere. Horrible. The tropium is insane. Actually, Dustox can actually make Quiver Dance work, unlike Beautifly. Look at this. This is insanity. You are aware that Quiver Dance multiplies your stats, right? There's nothing to multiply! Game Freak knew that Dustox was apparently tearing up Gen 3 ZU, and that's why they didn't give it a 10 BST buff when they did give it to Beautifly. So, officially, this thing is actually too strong and doesn't need any help. Unofficially, because our rankings are unofficial, probably bottom of Aaron's finest. I don't actually see anything dethroning this. If you can consider not being the worst as being dethroned. Masquerain starts off as Surskit. This is probably the first entry in our list that some people might not consider an early bug, but you get it right outside of Littleroot. And it does have this level 22 Evo, which is kind of late, but that's the same as Ariados, right? And people would consider Ariados an early game bug. Bug Water, actually a pretty cool type, the first Bug Water in the series, and that's a much better typing than either Bug Poison or Bug Flying. Sure, the only ones we've seen so far, right? 50 special attack, 65 speed? For a first form early game bug, that's actually kind of reasonable. Evolves into Masquerain, and yeah, it's a Hoenn Pokemon. Why does this have 60 attack? 80 special attack is whatever, 60 speed is terrible. Oh, its highest stat, it's special defense!
The magic ends here.
Well, just like with the other bugs, they did actually recognize that this thing was pretty terrible, and they did give it a stat buff. They gave Butterfree plus 10 special attack, they gave Beedrill plus 10 attack, they gave Ariados plus 10 special defense, so buffs of 10 to all of these bugs. We have Masquerain at 414, and they gave it some stat buffs as well, so it actually went to... Why did they give it quadruple the buff of any of the other Pokemon? They gave it almost half a mega. That's how bad Masquerain was, and they did this in Gen 7 instead of 6. So what actually changed here? Well, we gained 20 more special attack, that's huge. And we gained 20 more speed. Wow, it's actually pretty good. Now what do we get for moves? We do get Air Slash, that's pretty good. You get some standard bug suckin' move. Hey, it gets Quiver Dance. Whoa, Hydro Pump. Off of 100 special attack, that's pretty good. And it gets Hurricane and Hydro Pump, so this thing is actually really good in rain. Why is Hurricane bold, though? And Hydro Pump isn't. Bold text means that it gets a stab bonus, right? It matches one of the Pokemon's types. So this is like a Bulbapedia error, right? Because this is a Bug Water type, right? It's Bug... Oh. Bug Flying. So they had the very cool Pond Skater Pokemon with the, at the time, unique typing, tossed in the bin in favor of this completely generic, far worse typing of Bug Flying. Whoops. Pretty much every ROM hack I've seen that features balance changes just makes this thing Bug Water. It's much better. It even has rain in the name. Come on, guys. Why is this a Bug Flying type? Ability Intimidate's actually very good as well. We were pretty vicious to this thing. Without the unprecedented and quite unique massive BST buff, this would probably cap out at B, considering the things we're about to talk about. But I actually think Masquerain now is not a joke. I think this actually might be our first one in good infestment. For in-game, you actually can attack things with it. It does actually have okay early game stats now. And this is a thing you might actually use in a competitive match that you're actually trying to win. Because it is an 80 base speed sticky web setter. For some reason, this thing gets sticky web. Sticky web is one of the best moves in the game. So it's very, very good at doing that. And it does also have quiver dance. And it has intimidate. So it's got a lot of things going for it that counteract the god-awful bug flying typing and the very mediocre stats. And it's very strong in rain as well. This thing's actually pretty good. All it took was 40 welfare BST points and some of the best moves in the game. Unbuffed Masquerain has a higher BST than Macargo. Have mercy. Apparently Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Guzma has an EV trained Masquerain with max speed and special attack. I guess that's notable. It's not even his main Pokemon though. Ninjask and Shedinja. These are both evolutions of Nincada, and I mean that as in they are both evolutions of one Nincada. Very unique and interesting evolution mechanic. They both start off as Nincada, maybe it's Nincada, maybe it's Ninsada, maybe it's Ninsada, I don't know, I just call it Nincada. Bug ground type, evolves at level 20. Stats wise, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know this thing had 90 defense. That's a lot. Remember the Cocoons only had 55.
Break yourselves upon my body!
The bug ground typing is very interesting, but you can't really attack with this thing, so it doesn't really come up that much. Compound Eyes is a good ability, I guess. Really, as with all of these Pokemon, you want to just evolve this as soon as possible. Level 20 to evolve into both Ninjask and Shedinja. All you need is a Pokeball and an empty spot in your party, and the husk that was shed, even though there's no pupil form, then becomes Shedinja. Ninjask's the name, and speed's my game. Whoa!
You're too slow.
Wild speed. 90 attack that's actually kinda decent. 160 speed is insane. I think this is the third fastest Pokemon in the game. It's slower than Deoxys S, who's like an alien, and it's slower than Regieleki. However, Ninjask is actually faster than both of them after only one turn because it's got one of the best abilities in the series, Speed Boost. Now, Ninjask itself obviously doesn't need any more speed. However, your teammates might. And you guys know what I'm about to talk about here. When you gain actual stat boosts in speed, that's something you can baton touch. That's how we say baton pass in Japanese. You can baton touch it to your teammates. And that's what this thing is the king of. Speed boost for passive speed buffs, and 90 attack isn't that bad. I guess you could try attacking your opponent, but probably not. You get Swords Dance. So this is a Pokemon that can get free speed boosts and can potentially substitute for more speed boosts and a chance to get a Swords Dance and pass that as well. Usually passing speed is enough to be successful. If you can pass speed and attack, you just win. This thing's gotta go fast. Essential part of strategies that were so meta, baton pass chains, that they literally got banned. And Ninjask was a huge part of that. As for actually attacking with Ninjask itself, either in-game or in competitive, probably not. But it doesn't need to. Extremely powerful utility role. Unmatched. Probably the best baton passer in the game. It's probably gonna use its ninjutsu here. It's probably better Butterfree. What? It used its ninjutsu to disrupt the tier list, hang on. Teleports in front of you. If you thought dealing with Ninjask was obnoxious, wait till you have to deal with Shedinja. Shedinja, one of the most unique Pokemon in the entire franchise, in many ways. Bug Ghost, very funky and unique typing, and it has, of course, the very unique and extremely powerful Wonder Guard ability. Now, I made a whole video about the super effective Swindle, and how I think super effective attacks aren't actually that important. People overemphasize them. But Shedinja with Wonder Guard can literally only be damaged by super effective attacks. Asterisk. This 236 base stat total is actually very misleading. With Beedrill, we talked about stats that may as well be 0, but for Shedinja in particular, these defenses may as well be 0. And its HP isn't literally 0, it's 1. Because Shedinja, the whole gimmick is that it's almost invincible, but if you can hit it, it dies no matter what. A large part of BSD is also HP. That tends to be a large chunk of most Pokemon stat total, and Shedinja, of course, doesn't have HP. Hey, 90 attack's not bad. We are going to look at the type chart for Shedinja because it's actually very important. So because of the Wonder Guard ability, the only way to directly damage Shedinja is with Flying, Rock, Ghost, Fire, or Dark moves. Now this is the only way to directly damage it, because you can actually get around Wonder Guard with any sort of passive damage. Indirect damage, like Leech Seed, Poison damage, Burn damage, Sandstorm Chip, Entry Hazard damage from Spikes or Stealth Rock. Shedinja is weak to Stealth Rocks, that's why it dies. All of those will also negate Wonder Guard's damage prevention and allow you to knock out Shedinja. However, it will still get an action if you go with the passive damage, because those happen at the end of the turn, I guess except for the entry hazards. Usually Shedinja's item choice just makes it a bit more obnoxious to deal with. If it has a Focus Sash, then you'll have to directly attack it twice. But it might also opt for something like Safety Goggles to prevent your Sandstorm from killing it, or maybe Heavy Duty Boots to be able to switch in safely to entry hazards. So Shedinja also has counterplay on its end to try and preserve its 1 HP. Although I would describe Shedinja and Wonder Guard as a gimmick, it is actually a very viable gimmick. There are many contexts where, if you have the right meta knowledge, Shedinja is actually invincible. Which, as you can imagine, is extremely useful. This thing has a legit use in Ubers. Kyogre cannot touch this thing. Kyogre hates Shedinja. When move pools are limited, that's when Shedinja really shines. If you can deal with Shedinja, then it's a joke, right? Just get rid of it with anything. If you can't deal with Shedinja, it's invincible! What are you gonna do? Notably, Terra Electric Balloon Shedinja is such a problem that it is effectively invincible in too many scenarios, and it makes Gen 9 national decks kind of unplayable if you allow it. I normally don't talk that much about Nuzlocking in my lists, but we do have to mention, Shedinja is the Nuzlocke god, because Shedinja scales with your meta knowledge. If you know what your opponent can do, which is not always possible in competitive, but it is always possible in in-game, this thing is literally invincible, and it'll save your entire team if you use it right. And it's also free, because hey, you also got Ninjask out of your Nincada, right? This thing is actually very, very cool, and very, very viable in many ways if you know how to use it. I think it's Metamorphin time. A match made in heaven. I guess Ninjask also died at some point. Oh, apparently Ninjask died when Baton Pass died. Does Shedinja count as a real Pokemon if it's carried by its ability? Well, it's the only one who has the ability, so yeah. Should we make a heavenly tier for Shedinja? Wow. Okay, for people in the premium, I asked if we should make a separate heaven tier for Shedinja, and pretty much everybody is saying no. I can't believe we have a graphic for this.
Something you're doing?
I tribute 2 interns.
I can do that.
Gate kept. Sorry, pal, you're not on the list. Kricketot into Kricketoon. Very cute. And no cocoon stage, it just evolves into Kricketoon at the incredibly early level of 10, wow. Yikes. Yikes, I think these are the worst stats we've seen so far, oh my god, yikes. But hey, it doesn't need stats because its method of combat, it was bide.
Bide. One of the worst moves in the franchise. How are you gonna get to level 10 by biding your time? You're not. So this thing has to actually suck XP from teammates in order to level up, which is the exact opposite of what you want your early game bug to do. Stop stealing my XP! However, Bide did drop out of the race, and in modern games you can actually attack. Congratulations. Only have to get to level 10 to get to kricketot, still a pure bug type, but after suffering through the Bide administration up to level 10, you would think that you would be rewarded by being able to finally open up a can of diddly whoop ass on your opponents, right? But you would be wrong. 85 attack, pure bug type, with 65 speed, and in Gen 4, no moves. This OST sucks. I'm hearing some sour notes. For the crime of completely failing at the role of early game bugs due to the Bide administration's policies, and for not even being that good once you get to the evolution, I'm sorry, I have to sentence this thing to Aaron's finest. It's terrible. But hey, it does have a cool cry, and if you make a joke about diddly whoop, you get $9.99.
We need more gold.
Thanks, kricketot. And thanks to the Dukester for the donation, funding my music career. It is better in later generations because it can actually attack, and it gets access to Technician, and also buffed Fury Cutter. So you actually get a 40 base power Fury Cutter immediately upon evolution with a possible Technician buff that takes the edge off, or maybe adds the edge on, to the initial 40 base power hit. But that's in the later games, which I think I mentioned at the beginning, have different structures, right? They're way more open, and in those games, these bugs sort of lose their role, because why would you use them when you can just go get better Pokemon immediately? I guess it also learns Sticky Web, but you know what? So does Ariados. Wait, why did I put this thing above Ariados? Things just keep getting worse. This guy's gonna get replaced by AI Musician soon. Has it been 4 hours? Fun fact for you guys watching the premium. Up to this point in the tier list, including setting everything up, we've actually spent 3 hours and 45 minutes. That means if we slathered a honey tree at the start of this stream, we actually still wouldn't be able to catch a Combee. And people complain that our streams are too slow. Let's pretend it's been 4 hours. Honey, I'm home. It's Vespiquen. Vespiquen evolves from Combee. The vast majority of Combee are male 87.5. Now, drones are important to the Zerg economy, but probably not to your Pokemon team. So there's an 87.5% chance you get stuck with a male Combee. So what do you get for male Combee? Gonna be honest, 70 speed is more than I was expecting. But hey, Combee comes with a honey gather, which lets you get more honey to keep spinning that honey lottery wheel. And you know what? You can't knock the hustle. Male Combees have been watching too many red pill videos. They're on the Sigma grind set. They'll evolve someday. Hey, we actually get to use this graphic in reverse for once.
The future is not written.
If you get lucky and capture a female Combee at level 21, so you still have to deal with Combee stats until level 21, it does evolve into Vespiquen. Vespiquen doesn't change type, it's still a bug flying type, it's got the pressure ability, and how are the stats? 4 hours. 4 hours. For this. Now, these stats are actually pretty good. 474 total is quite high, and 70, 102, 102 bulk is actually very, very good. 80 on both offenses is also okay. 40 speed is horrendous. And none of this really matters because it's a bug flying type. This typing defensively is unsalvageable. You'll tank for the raid, right? Nah, I'd lose. Vespiquen, where's your shield? Hello? Kind of ironic that this thing has the ability pressure, because I think the reason most players in MMOs don't like playing the tank role is because
there's a lot of pressure on the tank, right? You have to lead, you die first, and everybody blames you. Tank noob. Vespiquen does actually get a whole arsenal of signature moves. It gets Defend Order, which is a cosmic power. It gives you plus defense plus special defense. It gets Heal Order, which is just recover. And it gets Attack Order, which at the time of release, back in Gen 4, this is like one of the best bug moves ever. 90 base power physical, 100% accuracy, and I believe it has a chance to drop the opponent's attack. It's pretty good. I think I said Attack Order, lowered attack. Attack Order has high crit. Whoops. And in modern day, she can still give the order to attack or defend, but healthcare is dead, unfortunately. Along with the Dexit controversy, I guess the NHS died. This all happens in England, right? So no more healthcare. Heal Order is gone. Although you probably wouldn't use it anyway because it does get Roost, and Roost tends to just be better. In terms of actual stat total, Vespiquen is actually pretty good. Unfortunately, it's a bug flying type. RIP. And it takes so much work to actually get a female Combee. And you can forget about using this in-game, right? 40 base speed with bug flying offense. No thanks. And defensive utility is worthless in-game. Would you use this as competitive? No. If I'm being honest, for me, that's Aaron's finest. However, I'm not exactly being honest with you. I'm gonna put it in Struggle Bug. Why? Because I got paid $15. The monarchy is alive and well, lining the pockets of social media influencers.
Some people are worried that maybe we will sell dungeons.
No pay to win.
No.
People are worried that we might start selling stat boosts. By the way, we have 2 B Pokemon and neither of them are in the B tier. They say that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, which is a very clumsy transition into saying you catch female Combees 50% of the time with Cute Charm, I think. So if you have a male Pokemon with Cute Charm, makes it a better chance to find the female Combee. It's just such a reward. You can go ahead and write a fanfic about the royal Combee running away with your commoner male Cute Charmer. You could also just reset to get female Combee when you check the honey tree. I think the Pokemon itself is determined, but the gender is not. So as long as you get a Combee, you can just reset for Vespiquen. But you'd have to be honey nuts to try that. And I think that's enough talk about Vespiquen. Cheerio. Is Honey Nut Cheerios? No, Honey Nut Cheerios is the one with the bee. The crazy demon that like possesses kids and turns them into copies of itself. That's a different honey cereal, right? Honeycomb Crisp? What was that called? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's just honeycomb. It's horrifying. I think maybe some non-Americans haven't heard of this. Consider yourselves lucky. Remember they had to change the image because parents complained? Your mom was right, okay? That honeycomb cereal was terrifying. Japanese name of Vespiquen is Bee Queen. Bee Queen. What's a Vespi? Does anyone know? Oh, Vespa is Latin for wasp. Okay, there we go. We even have a Latin adjacent graphic. Cheers.
While wine vinegar doesn't actually hydrate you, in fact, in large amounts it can do the exact opposite, it does slake your thirst. In Roman history, it was always seen as a refreshing thing to drink.
Refreshed. The guy in the video was talking about Posca, by the way.
You've heard of Vespiquen. Well, here's Imported Cheese's guide to the old-school RuneScape boss, the Kalphite Queen. You're gonna want to start by missing both of your Bandos Godsword specs. Then you're gonna want to almost die, but not quite. Maybe throw in a sick crit if you get lucky enough. Be sure to heal up so that you can then immediately take tons of damage. And for all that work, you get... Papaya Tree Seeds! Awesome! I hope that whoever designed this boss decided you needed a 1 in 128 drop for the Elite Diary,
then decided to gate the shortcut to Kalphite Queen behind the Elite Diary and also agility training. I hope that whoever made those decisions gets a very itchy bug bite, and it annoys them for like 3 days. I think that would be justice. Now, if female Combee doesn't swipe right on you, don't worry. Your honeyed words might land you a hot date with Burmy. Burmy also has gendered forms. Well, here's Burmy. Evolves into either Wormadam or Motham starting at level 20, depending on its gender. Female Burmy evolve into Wormadam, whereas male Burmy evolve into Motham. Nicest thing I can say about Burmy is that its Japanese name, Minomuchi. It's pretty cute to say. Minomuchi, hey. Burmy without its cloak. Can you put your clothes back on, please?
Do you have something, a cowl or something you can put on?
Actually, can you cover up these stats too? These are horrible. I feel like these stats are getting worse. Little did I know that Caterpie was gonna be among the high points of the attacks we were gonna see. Level 20 Burmies evolve into Motham. Japanese name is Gameru. The Sigma male jokes literally write themselves. Sigamameru. It's terrible. It's bug flying with swarm. You would definitely want to try and get the Tinted Lens ability. Tinted Lens doubles the damage of your resisted attacks, and hey, you're a bug type, so most of your attacks are going to be resisted. I think you guys might be surprised. Sigma male grind set. 94 in both offenses. What? I mean, 6 speed is trash, but it's not like the worst thing ever. You might go before some things. These defenses are god-awful, but hey, you were a bug-flying type, so you're probably dying anyway. And look at this! Quiver Dance on Evo! Remember that for all the other butterflies that were dancing, this was at like level 50 or something, pretty high. Level 20 for Quiver Dance. Wow. In Gen 4, of course, you just get nothing. No Hurricane, sadly. I've been thinking, considering how good Mega Beedrill was, and the fact we still don't have a B and B, I'm gonna do this. We're not even a flying type. We're gonna fly to B. Because I'm gonna put Motham in Struggle Bug. Motham's surprisingly good stats for being just a piece of crap bug. Wormadam. Now your female Burmy has 3 choices of attire when it evolves. It can either evolve into the Grass Cloak, if it's in a grassy area, the Ground Sandy Cloak, if it's in a sandy area, or the Trash Cloak, if it's inside a building, which is probably the hardest one to achieve. Mild spoilers, although only one of them is literally the Trash Cloak, they're all garbage. Wormadam is shuddering in anticipation, I bet. Their stats do actually change. Plant Cloak has the most special defense, oh yeah!
The magic ends here.
So although it has the best stats, it has by far the worst typing. We'll talk more about how bad Grass Bug is later. Sandy Cloak is sort of middle of the road in terms of typing. Ground is a really good attacking type, and also a pretty good defensive type as well. It's just a good type. And you've got that 105 defense, whoa!
Break yourselves upon my body.
And Trash Cloak is a steel bug type, one of the only unironically good bug combos, with 95 in both defenses, although for all of these, 60 base HP is pretty terrible. The attacking stats also change slightly. Trash Cloak has, what is this, 69 in both offenses? Wow, you could 69 with Trash Cloak Wormadam, incredible. The Ground Cloak has slightly more attack, and the Plant Cloak has slightly more special attack. So in summary, Plant Cloak, specially inclined, Sandy Cloak, physically inclined, Trash Cloak, balanced between them. Their move pools actually do change with their form as well, as you might expect. The Plant Cloak gains grass moves, absolute rubbish. The Sandy Cloak does get the best of the level up moves, because it does get Earthquake upon Eve.
Never mind. Oh, don't worry, gets Earth Power and Legends Arceus even though it's a physical attacker. And Trash Cloak gets level 47 Iron Head. Wow. Basically all of these are terrible, but you could use your Earthquake TM on Sandy Cloak Wormadam. You can do it. Now, of course, I did notice that all 3 of these did gain Quiver Dance upon Evo, just like Mothim, but the base stats are just so bad for all of them. So just forget about it. It's worthless. I think it's pretty obvious how all of these are going to be ranked. Grass Bug is so atrocious. It's actually worse than Dustox. It's so bad. You're going to be a defensive Pokemon with Bug Grass? No. Take that ridiculous outfit off. Sandy Cloak is definitely better. Ground Bug is an interesting typing, and Nincado can't really use it, but... well, let's be honest, Wormadam can't really use it either, but... it's better at using it. It's probably better than Ledian? That's the standard we're using for this list. And Steel Bug is actually a really good type. No caveats, it's actually just really good. Unfortunately, it's still a Wormadam. Why would you ever use this thing over Scizor, who's an offensive monster, Fortress, who's a defensive monster with like 94 base attack, Escavalier, who's a defensive and offensive monster? You never would. But compared to these losers, it's probably better than Vespiquen. It is actually capable of taking a hit. Gonna do a bit of deforestation here. I can't believe he deleted Viridian Forest. Welcome to Unova, a brave new world where, hey, bugs are actually allowed to be good. Asterisk. Leavanny! Swaddle! Absolutely adorable. And it is one of the emotes you can use today, which actually might not be a good sign. It does suffer a bit from the Unova tax, but you also get this at a bit of a later level. You get this in Pinwheel Forest. I think you're already in the 10s when you get it. So this level 20 Evo is actually not that bad. And then the final Evo into Leavanny, it's actually not level-based. It is friendship-based, which is probably a good thing. It probably means that you can get to max friendship and get the Leavanny Evo sort of ahead of the power curve. Assuming you actually use this thing, or if you don't, you can just walk around with it, have it in your party, and that way it actually gets a power buff thanks to the Evo, without actually taking XP from your Pokemon that are actually fighting. So I actually do think the Friendship Evo is an advantage for this line. Now this ain't Caterpie. It's Swaddle. So these stats are just better than Caterpie's. 70 defense is a lot. That's actually more than Metapod's. 53 base attack, I mean, it's not good, but it's better than Caterpie. Swadloon, the leaf-wrapped Pokemon. 90 defense and also 80 special defense. That's actually not bad for a mid-stage Pokemon. And its attack actually goes up as well, very slightly, 263 attack. For a Cocoon stage, yeah, these stats are okay. And this is also a very easy Cocoon stage to skip because of the friendship mechanic. I remember back in college, my very first girlfriend, I wrapped her in a blanket once, and she said, "I feel like a Swadloon." I'll always have that memory of 10 years ago by this point. Once you're best friends with your Swadloon, not very hard because Swadloon is very cute, you get to hire a Leavanny. Has a very fun aesthetic. It is the nanny Pokemon, so swaddle is actually a verb that means like to wrap in cloths, like you would for a baby. Very, very cute. This thing would actually fit right at home in that new Dragon Tales game. Dragon Tales the Veilguard diffuses a lot of the situations.
You two could still learn things together you'd never find out alone. Emmerich, you clearly find talking about dragons boring.
What? How? Who doesn't like dragons?
Aren't you curious why Tash likes them as much as you like necromancy?
The question crossed my mind.
And maybe Emmerich could help demystify magic, Tash.
Now, you would expect that this kind and caring Pokemon would be focused on defense. But you would be wrong, okay? This nanny's got hands, or blades. Whoa, 103 attack? 92 speed, those are both pretty good. And reasonable bulk to go with that. Wow. Don't touch the kids, okay? Stay back. You gotta go through Leavanny first. And apparently these weren't good enough because they buffed it. You thought you could defeat this nanny before? Well, think again. Plus 10 special defense, baby.
The magic ends here.
Rest easy, the kids are safe with Leavanny. Pretty glowing praise for this Leavanny. You would think you'd want to invite this into your home. Unfortunately, I have to confess, some of my praise was astroturfed. Actually, it would be better if it was astroturfed. Unfortunately, these were actually genuine grassroots statements. I chose this portrait because it's shocked that it's in this tier. You all know why. Good God. Grass bug. Grass bug is so bad. I think it's actually the worst dual typing in the game. I think it's the worst. Let's compare this to some of the other traditionally terrible dual typings. Ice grass, right? You die instantly to everything. But you do have stab ice, which is really good. And you can benefit from the new snow mechanic. Rock steel, also god-awful. You die instantly to everything. But if they don't have a fighting or ground move, I mean, fat chance of that, but you're probably okay. And at the very least, you get stab rock. Bug grass. Bug grass. You get nothing. Well, that's not true. You get terrible weaknesses. You instantly die to so many things. And offensively, it's worthless. It's worthless. Bug and grass on offense pair horribly. You basically hit the same things for half. It's so bad. You might try to brew some tropium. At least you can hit like rock ground types with the grass moves, but remember, rock ground types tend to be defensive, physically defensive, and you're a physical attacker. Just try and use this thing to actually fight enemies. Good luck. In Unova, pretty much everyone has Pidove and you instantly die. There's maybe 1 or 2 Pokemon on an enemy team that you can hit neutrally. The vast majority of them just resist all of your moves, and your stats aren't that good. You can get away with bad stab if you have incredible stats. And while Leavanny does have very good stats for the category of Pokemon we're talking about, they're not good enough to overcome a typing this diabolical. This is so bad. Maybe you could try and get around this with good coverage, but surprise, surprise, you don't get good coverage. The struggle bug is real. And if you find a way to make Leavanny work, hey, you're gonna be a trailblazer. Hey, 92 speed Sticky Webber. Unfortunately, almost entirely killed by the worst typing in the franchise. And its stats are good for a beginner bug, but not good overall. Should be B tier, I would agree, except I played Black and White 2 on my own, and no. This thing is so bad. I'm serious when I say you could swap grass out for literally any other type or just delete it and it would be better. And there's very, very few dual type combos where you can say they would be better as a monotype. That is a damning statement. Bug Ice is better? Oh yeah. At least you can use ice moves. You can just ignore what some nerd is saying in the chat. They are absolutely gassed out of their mind on tropium. For an idea of what they're advocating that makes Leavanny good, you can have Protect and Swords Dance. Protect lets you scout enemy moves, and then you can safely Swords Dance. Here's my plan. How about you use a real Pokemon that can just attack immediately and kill the opponent without these ridiculous gimmicks? People are saying that Leavanny should be in B tier. No, I will not budge. Leavanny is about nurturing kids. Well, here's a lesson for the next generation, okay? Believe in yourself, okay? If your friends jumped off a bridge saying that Leavanny should be in B tier, would you do the same? No. Believe in yourself. Stand firm. Grass Bug is pure ass. It should be glad that it's even in Struggle Bug. The Scolipede line starts as Venipede. Now there is a Chad Scolipede emote, so that's a bit of a spoiler, but don't get your hopes up too high. Bug poison throughout the entire line, which is not a good thing, but it is better than bug grass. Although this is a parallel to Leavanny, both of its evolutions are level-based, which in this case is bad, because I think you would reach max friendship before 30 for Scolipede. Stats for Venipede are, I mean, it's a stage 1 bug, so yeah, these are pretty bad. I think Swaddles are actually better. Whirlipede, standard cocoon antics, gains more defense, loses some speed. Still not great, and these are more relevant than Swadloon stats, because you might actually have to try fighting with this thing, whereas Swadloon you can just skip by being friends. At level 30, you get Scolipede. I don't really know what this means. Its back seems pretty straight, so I don't know where the Scola comes from. It's a bug, right? So stats can't be that good. What in the world? Well, it does have a lot of legs.
You're too slow.
Wild speed. 112 base speed is genuinely excellent. 90 base attack it's like pretty good for a bug. It's fine. Reasonable bulk for a bug, again, 60, 89, okay, 69 is not good. 99 agility master. And hey, Game Freak decided that for whatever reason, this wasn't good enough, and they buffed it. 10 more attack. Actually a relevant buff. What were its abilities? This poison point, swarm, who cares? Speed boost? I gotta say, I think they really opened Pandora's box with hidden abilities. Maybe they're giving too many Pokemon speed boosts. $2 mic transaction from Bro Duderman. They literally just wrote in Japanese speed boost. Well, thanks. Where do we rank Pendor? Well, it's actually got pretty good stats, and it has an insane ability, hidden ability, in speed boost. The other speed boost Pokemon has completed its metamorphosis. So this thing, it's really fast, so it goes first. And then what? It's a poison bug type. Despite having a somewhat respectable 100 attack, poison bug is total trash, so you cannot actually fight with this thing. Do not actually try attacking your opponent, even though you actually do get Mega Horn. Poison Tail, wow. Offensively, it might actually be worse than Grass and Bug. However, it is way better defensively. Poison Bug is actually a pretty reasonable defensive type. And that's good, because the main thing that Scolipede does is not necessarily attacking. Even though it does actually have some pretty good attacking options. You can actually Earthquake things. This is far, far more useful as a support Pokemon, because you can Toxic Spike, and you're a really fast Toxic Spiker. You can also lay down regular spikes, and those speed boosts, you don't have to use them, because you can pass them off with Baton Pass. This thing gets Swords Dance, it gets Iron Defense, so this thing is actually pretty useful as a Baton Pass bot. I think Ninjask is still better as a Baton Pass bot, but Scolipede is not bad at that, if it has to. For actually using Venipede in your in-game playthrough, where the main thing that matters is just attacking things, you can just forget about it. Because Bug Poison is kinda hopeless. We can put it higher than Masquerain, because Masquerain was straight trash until Gen 7, and this thing was at least kind of okay since it was introduced, so sure. Vivillion! This is the Gen 6 bug type. Starts as a scatter bug. This is another completely uncontroversial beginner bug. Very early evo into Spewput level 9, and then final evo Vivillion level 12. Scatterbug stats, terrible. Shouldn't be a surprise by this point. Spewpa, I think it's got more defense than Metapod, we can say that much. 22 attack, 27 special attack. But hey, this is actually Gen 6, so you do have the EXP share, you don't actually have to use this thing. And final evolution to, apparently it's Vivillon. I think I've been saying Vivillion the whole time, but it's Vivillon. The sort of gimmick of Vivillon is that its pattern actually changes based on where in the world you are. Look at these, 20 separate forms.
And this was in Gen 6, which had the GTS and the PS as the player search system. The best trading interface we've ever had in the franchise. They figured out how to do it perfectly, and then they went ahead and made it worse in subsequent generations, as is Pokemon tradition. Although you only need one form in order to get your deck's completion, you could actually try and collect all the Vivillon forms. Did you know that Pokemon is based on bug catching? It's true. You could trust me. This also made the Wonder Trade feature where you would just get random Pokemon. It made it a lot less disappointing when you got a random Spupa or Scatterbug, because even though it's probably not going to be useful for you in-game, hey, it might be a Vivillon form that you don't have yet. As for the stats, do these look familiar to anyone else? This is Vivillon. This is Butterfree. Huh. Well, Vivillon has significantly better speed, however, it has less special defense. So it's kind of a toss-up as to which one is better. Vivillon's better. Vivillon is basically just better Butterfree. Exact same typing, however, Vivillon doesn't have the useless special defense. It has much better speed, which is very important. It also gets Compound Eyes, and the Powders, and Quiver Dance, and Hurricane. Apparently it has the hidden ability Friend Guard, which reduces the damage your ally takes, but I don't think you would use Vivillon for this. Now, you can't see it here because it's not available in the modern generations, but for balance reasons, Game Freak removed Vivillon's most powerful asset. You've heard of Sleep Powder, you've heard of Poison Powder, you've heard of Rage Powder, but what about Powder Powder? Powder covers the target in powder for the remainder of the turn. If a Pokemon affected by powder attempts to use a fire-type move, they will take damage equal to 25% of their maximum HP and cannot execute the move. Oh, but PP is still consumed. So this is literally the meme, somebody set us up the bomb. Your psychic powers activate. You powder your opponent, and powder has priority, by the way, so you don't actually need to be faster. And then you've set them up the bomb because they try to fire attack you and they blow themselves up. Whoa!
Bombs? You want it? It's yours, my friend.
If it wasn't clear, I'm kidding, this move sucks. But it is very funny. And hey, they do lose their turn if they trigger the explosion, so if you do set them up the bomb, you did deal 25% damage to them. Apparently in Japanese, this move is just called Funjin Dust. Dust! It must be a signature move of those characters from Dustborn. Although Vivillon is effectively just better Butterfree, you would actually use Butterfree in your Kanto run. I don't actually think you would use Vivillon in any games that it appears in, because why don't you just use a real Pokemon? This exists in the context of party-wide experience share, and usually far better options. Starting in Gen 6, there's some pretty extreme power creep in your options, and I don't really think you would actually use this thing. You can, and it would be better than Butterfree. However, you have so many options that are better than Vivillon, and you don't actually have many options that are better than Butterfree for when you obtain Butterfree. So I think this is still going to be in good investment. It's not bad, but it doesn't have the legit non-meme in-game use that Butterfree does, even though its stats are basically just better. It's also worth noting that Vivillon actually needs to relearn Sleep Powder, which is not possible until at least Gen 8, and by that point, power creep is completely out of control, so it's even more outclassed in-game. Vikavolt line starts as Grubbin. It is actually a pure bug type at its first form. Evolves into Charge a Bug at level 20, and then evolves into Vikavolt and develop in a special magnetic field in Alola. This is actually a late game area, and later on it's just a Thunderstone evolution. Grubbin is actually a physical attacker. For a stage 1 bug, 62 attack is, yeah, kind of okay.
When it evolves into Charge-a-Bug, it gains the electric typing, so it is now a bug electric type. And it is still a physical attacker. 82 attack is actually not bad at all. Wow, it has a 400 BST as a cocoon. That's actually higher than Butterfree already. I think the cry is also really funny. It's like a honking horn. Unique ability here, Battery. The signature ability of Charge-a-Bug. So this is a signature ability of the middle Evo. That's crazy. Powers up ally Pokemon special moves. R.I.P. Plusle and Minun. Wow, raise the power of ally special moves by 30%. Oh, but actually it's not 30%. More precisely, it's 5,325 over 4096. The next Kingdom Hearts game. Once you reach the special magnetic field, wherever that is, or if you just get a Thunderstone in the later games, you can then evolve Charge-a-Bug into Vikavolt, known in Japanese as Ganon! I just wonder what Kua Ganon's up to. Apparently he's an electric bug type. Really cool design? Comes with the Levitate ability. Check out these dex entries. It zips around, zip implying fast movement, right? On sharp lookout for an opening. Concentrates electrical energy with its large jaws and uses it to zap its enemies. Ooh, okay. Vikavolt flusters opponents with acrobatic flying maneuvers. Wow, this thing's pretty nimble, pretty agile, right? And hey, it's called Vikavolt, and Vika is, I think, the fastest character in Radiant Dawn. Also the inventor of denim, apparently. Ooh, and in Scarlet, it displays exceptional mobility. It weaves between trees and shoots down bird Pokemon with its electromagnetic beams. Wow, exceptional mobility. Exceptional mobility. 43 speed. I mean, you can describe something as exceptional in a negative sense, right? For context on how slow 43 speed is, Golem has 45. Even in the context of a Alola, this is a disaster. Why does this thing have 70 attack, by the way? And also, I somehow have not mentioned, oh my god, 145 special attack, that's incredible. We're kind of being doomer about the terrible speed, but this is not even Tropium. It's good in Trick Room. And with 145 special attack, yeah, I think you can get away with being a bit too slow sometimes. Too slow all the time. Yeah, 145 special attack is incredible. I think this is tied with Chandelure. If we could make this like 30 attack and 83 speed, that would be nice. 145 special attack is bonkers. Super, super good. And it does actually have a real type to use that stat with because, hey, secondary electric type, really good. Unfortunately, a couple things clip Vikavolt's wings. Most obviously, the god-awful speed. And it also barely qualifies as an early bug because its final Evo in its introduction region is just so late. Probably the latest Evo of any of the bugs we've talked about so far. Until the rework where it's now Thunderstone, because now that you can Thunderstone it and immediately go to Vikavolt and relearn all the stuff because Stone Evos are now broken, that's like super valuable. But no matter what, it's always gonna be way too slow. I'm thinking...
Okay.
Very solid B. Apparently in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon you can evolve it earlier, but I'm not paying $40 to do that. Ribombee. I purposefully chose the cutest picture of Ribombee possible. Starts off as this little cutifly, with just an adorable Japanese name, Aburi. As far as I know, Aburi is a term for lightly flame grilled, which you apply to, for example, Aburi salmon sushi, where you lightly grill the salmon. I don't think that's what they mean by this, but it is weak to fire. Evolves into Ribombee starting at level 25, and it is a bug fairy type. You could go with Honey Gather, or you could go with Shield Dust. You should definitely go with Shield Dust, because Shield Dust is just better inner focus. Hopefully we've learned by now that you shouldn't expect too much from these first stage bugs, and yeah, this is not very good, but it does have 84 speed. Once you reach level 25, you'll get Ribombee. Abu Ribbon! Now we've got a ribbon. Bug Fairy. Fairy, really good secondary typing. Arguably one of the best types in the game. Super, super OP. Introduced in Generation 7, right? Generation 7, we did just talk about Vikavolt. Infamously known as a Alola because all of the Gen 7 Pokemon are just trudging through the mire. They have terrible speed. If this Pokemon was introduced in a Alola, why does it have 124 speed? Checkmate, liberals. Turning point Alola. Now, physical stats, bulk stats overall, complete trash. However, 95 special attack is actually pretty good. Pretty good. But is it good enough? Fails the Go-Goat gradient, baby. But it's probably still good enough. 464 total is bizarrely high, but most of it doesn't actually do anything. The only real stats this thing has are 95 special attack and 124 speed. But 124 speed is a lot. What are you gonna do with that 124 speed? Well, you have some options. You got Pollen Puff, pretty cool signature move. You get Quiver Dance. I've heard this move is pretty good. You do actually get Moon Blast, although it is a breeding move, so you're probably not gonna get this in-game. Oh, and also just, you know, one of the best moves in the game, Sticky Web. Beautiful. The best Sticky Web user, not just on this list, in the franchise. As for in-game, probably not gonna use this thing. You probably have better options, but unparalleled Sticky Web user, and Sticky Web is nuts. On top of being a Sticky Web bot, you actually do have a really high speed stat, 95 base special, stab Moonblast. That's not bad at all. We'll put it in front of Butterfree. Taking a closer look at Pollen Puff here, it's a 90 base power special bug move. And I think it's one of the only modular moves in the game. You can choose one. If you attack your enemy, it's actually a 90 base power special bug move. But you can also target your ally, at which point it becomes just heal pulse on your ally. However, you have to be careful. If you're the healer in a party where Chestnut is the tank, be careful because there's anti-synergy. Cause bulletproof blocks Pollen Puff. No friendly fire allowed. We can just imagine Chestnut bleeding out on the ground. Medic!
Medic! I need healing. I need healing. I need healing. I need healing. I need healing.
I need healing. Report Ribombee for no heals. Healer noob. Araquanid. Did you know that the new Monster Hunter Wilds game has an arachnophobia feature? Changes these small spiders into, like, blobs that then do some R18 things to you. I think they're actually scarier than the actual arachnids in the game. Replacing spiders with blobs is kind of pertinent because Araquanid is a spider that features a blob. Starts as a Dewpider, evolves into Araquanid starting at level 22, so you can expect Ariados levels of performance, right? That's the same level as Ariados. These stats are pretty bad, but they do get better when it evolves, right, into Araquanid. Oh, you could bet they got better. Talk about a glow up.
The magic ends here.
132 res! I wouldn't blame you for turning on arachnophobia mode, seeing that much special defense. Ooh, I'm scared. And actually 92 defense. So wow, 68, 92, 132 bulk. That's okay. It's actually very good on special, and it's reasonable on physical. 42 speed is atrocious. This is one less than Vikavolt. And 70 attack is, I'm gonna say, the lower end of mediocre, not very good. It is a bug water type. This ability, Water Bubble. Well, Bubble's a terrible move, so what does Water Bubble do? Water Bubble halves the damage dealt to this Pokemon with this ability by Fire-type attacks. Oh, so it's half the thick fat. And doubles the power of Water-type moves used by the Pokemon with this ability. It also prevents Pokemon with this ability from being burned. So it's like thin fat, because you don't actually get the ice resistance. It literally is just water veil, you can't be burned. Well, it's not quite like adaptability, because it's only half of your stabs. It's only the water one, not the bug one. But it also is doubled. So it's like double half of an adaptability. It's like adapt. Water Bubble is way better than it sounds, and I know that it already sounds good. Water Bubble doubles all of the numbers on your water attack. So this base attack value, any IVs, any EVs, and your stab multiplier of 1.5, all of those get multiplied by 2. That's crazy, but it's only for water moves. But water's a good type. Does it even have any physical water moves? Oh yeah, it's got the best one in the game. Okay. Bubbles float to the top, right? This thing is really legit. If you want to attack your enemies, you can do that. Really brutal water attacks. It's not quite Vicious Rend, but it is still very strong. In competitive, you have the option to either hit really hard with your water move, or you can actually do more of a utility thing because it does actually get Sticky Web. Now, its speed is god-awful, but it does have pretty decent physical bulk, and unironically, insane special defensive bulk. So wow, you can take a hit and get your Sticky Web off. Although, Ribombee is still far better at that because Ribombee just Sticky Webs without having to survive anything. We can put this above Masquerain, right? Out of the way, the real water bug type is here. I think I missed a microtransaction, hang on. Sorry, I was in my own bubble. $5 microtransaction from Torgo Entertainment, who says, my favorite Gen 7 Pokemon, and in my top 3 of all time, best part of this guy, watching these slow roller people finding out what Water Bubble actually did. Yeah, it kind of sounds too good to be true. Unlike real life investment bubbles, which eventually do pop and ruin people's lives, we can say for sure, Araquanid, good investment. This water bubble ain't gonna pop. Well, unless you use Mold Breaker. Although I think if you Mold Breaker Fire Attack, burn Araquanid, because Mold Breaker only applies as you're attacking, it will then regain Water Bubble as your turn ends, and then the burn will be healed. So this thing is basically unburnable. I guess theoretically you might have been able to kill it with fire if you have Mold Breaker, since it would no longer resist you. But a lot of fire attacks are special, right?
The magic ends here.
Good luck with that. It's your boy Golisopod. Welcome to the Guzma Nation. Before you get Golisopod, you have to use Wimpod. It's your boy Wimpod. Evolves into Golisopod starting at level 30. Has the Wimp Out ability that switches it out automatically if it gets knocked below half health. You know what? Compared to some of the other bugs we've seen, this actually isn't that bad. But of course, compared to any real Pokemon, this is unacceptable. Hey, 80 speed's pretty good. This is basically a Lowland Magikarp. This is Magikarp. This is Wimpod. Actually have the exact same speed. But Wimpod's got 30 more BST! And very thematic, the struggle bug is real. You can forget about fighting with Wimpod, but it is in games with universal experience share. And you can teach it TMs, but good luck. It really doesn't matter what moves you have with stats like that. Once you get to level 30, you do unlock ya boy Golisopod, destruction in water bug form. Here's the pod. Awesome stats? 75, 140, 90 bulk is crazy. That's really good.
Break yourselves upon my body.
125 attack, also incredibly good. You would never use special attacks. 40 speed sucks. It keeps getting slower. 43 for Vikavolt, 42 for Araquanid, 40 for Golisopod. This thing's stats make a pretty good first impression, as does its signature move, First Impression. So first impression is bug type extreme speed, 90 base power physical bug move, +2 priority, not just +1, +2. But it does have a condition, which is that you can only use it on the first turn that you're sent out, just like Fake Out. First Impression is a move that you actually want to be switching in and out in order to make full use of, and that has incredible synergy with Golisopod's special ability,
Emergency Exit! Now, after evolving from Wimpod and gaining incredible stats, this thing no longer wimps out. Instead, it Kikikaihi Crisis Prevention. This Pokemon sensing danger switches out when its HP becomes half or less. That's bad. It's actually a downside. Now, if this activated at the end of turn, this actually might be kind of good, because it would allow you to take a hit with your really beefy defense, counter them with your own hit, and get a switch. That would be amazing, which is why they didn't do it. It activates immediately as you drop below half health. So you can actually have a move queued, your enemy attacks you, you get dropped below half health, and you get switched out, which is almost always bad. There could be cases where you could use Golisopod to soak the hit and then bring your ally in, but you can't control that. So this almost always ends up being downside. I could just be dumb here, but I also flavor-wise don't understand this. I thought the whole point was that it is no longer a wimp. It could be that, despite the fact that it now has good stats, it's still a wimp at heart, and so it retreats. But in that case, I don't understand why they changed the name. They should have just kept it as Wimp Out. This really is just corporate PR speak for Wimp Out. No. I'm not wimping out. This is a tactical retreat. I personally, if they wanted to keep a negative ability on Golisopod, I think it would have been more fun to make it the reverse of Wimp Out. Make it something like Last Stand, where if you're below a certain amount of HP, you can't switch out. Golisopod has a lot of issues. Wimpod obviously completely useless, but it is in a game with universal experience share, which is nice. Has awesome stats once it's a Golisopod, but Emergency Exit is so bad. It is a very, very bad negative ability. It's also especially bad on Golisopod because Golisopod's stat spread, slow and bulky with really good attack, really wants to do things like Swords Dance Aqua Jet, right? But you can't do that because if you get Emergency Exited, you lose your stat boosts. Really unfortunate. However, you can just smack them in the face with a first impression to do something. And if you have enough of a lead over your opponents, eventually they're never going to be able to damage you because you'll just kill them. We can probably put him in B tier. Water Bug also a good typing, and it gets good moves like Liquidation. It's very strong. If it did not have Emergency Exit, if it had literally nothing, just a neutral ability, I'd probably put it in good Infestment. But considering the drawbacks it has, we'll just put it in B. Orbeetle, not to be confused with Orbeetle. This one's actually from Galar. We of course have to start with an actually, because Blipbug is the embodiment of well actually, but in Pokemon form. This guy is just itching to correct you on your minor mistakes. In terms of being a beginner bug, the first Evo into its cocoon form, Dottler, happens at level 10. So that's usually when you'd actually get to the final form. And the final form Orbeetle, level 30. So this is much higher than earlier bugs. But again, this is in a game with universal experience share, so it's not that bad. What a nerd. This number isn't even 200. This is a bad start. And Blipbug itself is actually pure bug. Let's check out the Dottler radar and see what the forecast is. Forecast says highest stats resistance.
The magic ends here.
Didn't need the Dottler radar to tell me that one. I mean, 50, 80, 90 defenses, that's okay for like a middle stage, but good luck trying to attack anything. You do have 50 special attack, and at this point you do actually have bug and psychic typing. So you do have stab confusion. I think the big problem is that you're stuck in Dottler for 20 levels, which basically means this thing's a bench setter. You can't actually fight with this thing. How much higher can this special defense go? Holy moly. Citizens of Earth, we're under attack. We can't stop these invaders.
The magic ends here.
They're impervious to our energy weapons.
Hold it!
Hey, post-production imported cheese here with a quick apology and correction. The proper response to Orbeetle's out of this world special defense clearly should have been resistance is futile. As the most resistant tactician in all of Fire Emblem, I can't believe I missed that. I hope you can forgive me. I'm truly sorry, and I promise I'll do better.
Hey, not only does it have 120 special defense, it actually has 110 defense. Both of those numbers are really good, but we've got a little bit of Shuckle syndrome going on here, because 60 HP is not good. But I'm mostly trying to not oversell the bulk. 60, 110, 120 is actually pretty respectable bulk. I think that's actually close to the water poison thing that everyone hates. Except that's a water poison type, which is an amazing defensive type. And this is a bug psychic type, which is not an amazing defensive type. I think most shocking is 90 base speed. 90 base speed is not bad at all, and 80 special attack is, mediocre, but hey, that pairing, along with this much bulk, you're definitely going to get an attack off. I think this thing is significantly faster than it looks. Does actually get a Gigantamax form. Gigantamax form gives it a G-Max move, G-Max Gravitas, which inflicts damage, and applies gravity. I'm not gonna talk about gravity again. You can check out the Gen 4 moves tier list to learn all about the gravity of the situation. Usually the Gen 8 Pokemon actually have pretty cool Gigantamax forms because they were designed with the idea that they would get a Gigantamax form. Citizens of Earth, I'm here to bargain. Do you like psychic moves? Do you like bug moves? That's about all you're getting. Hey, it's got Sticky Web. Body press with 110 defense, and you are ballin' with Shadow Ball. You can suck them with Giga Drain. Alien bugs known for sucking a lot. Oh yeah, let's compare it to Ledian. These are Orbeetle stats, and these are Ledians. Orbeetle. Ledian. Orbeetle stats are literally higher in every single category, including resistance. Ledian can't even win at resistance. Orbeetle even has higher attack, but it doesn't have Iron Fist, so it does less damage. Orbeetle's abilities, Swarm, terrible. Telepathy, pretty bad. Frisk is actually kind of useful. If you're wondering why this thing has Frisk, it's because aliens are known for probing humans. I don't think that's actually why. It's because Frisk in Japanese, mitoshi, is more related to the ability to detect things instead of like literally frisking them in the New York City sense. So it just has psychic powers so it can see your item. This probably should have just been a Ledian Evo, considering how much it crushes Ledian in stats, and they even both have the same sort of ladybug aesthetic. But no, they're separate Evo lines. After pondering the Orbeetle,
Okay.
low B, it actually has pretty good stats overall. But again, this is in a later generation, so there's a lot of power creep. And it's basically Wimpod, right, in terms of usefulness. You cannot use this thing until level 30, at which point, it's okay. But Psychic Bug, also just not a great typing. Water Bug is definitely better. It's not a disaster. Orbeetle and Ledian sort of share the ladybug aesthetic, but the main thing that Ledian is actually based on is Kamen Rider, which is a Japanese superhero. It is a bug-themed Power Ranger, basically, although it's probably more accurate to say that the Power Rangers are non-bug-themed Kamen Rider. Kamen just means mask. So he's the masked rider, and it is a bug mask. So not only does Orbeetle outclass Ledian in terms of basically everything, Lokix outclasses Ledian at actually being the masked rider, because that is also the theme of Lokix, except wow, they actually decided to make Lokix a hero. Now every hero has humble beginnings, and humble beginnings is right, because its first form, Nimble, this is spelled like a tech startup, right? Can't spell Nimble correctly, you gotta swap out one of the vowels with a Y. And just like most tech startups, it's kind of a scam. You call this Nimble? I call it crap. What is this? This is horrible. Hey, at least the BSD is over 200. You only have to wait until level 24. This is a Gen 9 Pokemon, so there is universal experience share. Evolving into Lokix, you actually gain a dark typing,
And if you thought the Final Fantasy villain X-Death was a dumb name, you're right, but let me introduce you to X-Leg. Hilarious. Why isn't it Cross-Leg? Hey, wow. These stats are pretty good. Remember when we talked about how good Leavanny would be theoretically if it had a real type? Well, this is basically that. It's basically Leavanny, except it's not a grass type. Dark is a way, way, way better attacking type than grass. It is not even close, especially post steel type nerf. And this mask ain't just for show, because this mask comes equipped with some tinted lens. Now, tinted lens is better the worse your stabs are, and it's a bug type, so its stabs are terrible, which means that tinted lens gets a lot of use. I think Lokix might actually be the masked hero we need to save the day. Let's put it above Butterfree. People actually use this thing, and it's not a joke. It also gets first impression, by the way. Huge part of this is tinted lens. Without tinted lens, we'd probably be looking at a B tier. But tinted lens is huge. Actually being able to use your stab attacks makes it way better. This thing is very, very good in the current UU, which is power crept to hell. So it's amazing that this thing actually finds unironic use there. Operating in the shadows of UU, as a dark type should. Also just a really cool design, and one of the only new Pokemon that actually has cool animations. It puts those X legs to use. Whooshah! You get him with some flip kicks. Although they kind of overuse that animation, pretty much all of its attacks have that. And hey, unlike Gen 1 Lickitung not learning Lick, Lokix actually learns Low Kick. You've heard of saving the best for last? Well, how about the worst for last? It's Spidops! Spidops' first form, Tarantula. Actually very cute. That's probably the last positive thing we're gonna be saying. Oh, Japanese name is cute too. Tamanchira. Tama means orb. Oof. Hey, probably on the better end of the first form bug stats we've seen. Abilities either Insomnia, which is okay, or Stakeout, which is also okay. You deal increased damage to the opponent if they switched out, and then they're switching in, but I don't know why you would switch out against Tarantula. And it evolves into Spidops at level 15. Same abilities of Insomnia or Stakeout. Same pure bug typing. Japanese name is Wanaida. Wana means trap, so it's trap spider. In order for a trap to function, somebody has to be able to fall for it. Who would be dumb enough to use this thing? I think that Spidops is actually a psyop to try and convince people that power creep isn't happening. This is a straight up Johto Pokemon that they just made in Gen 9. Stat total 404, viability not found. This is god-awful. 60, 92, 86 bulk with pure bug typing. You're not doing anything with 79 attack. You're not doing anything with 52 special attack. You're not doing anything with 35 speed. This is so bad. Does get a unique signature move, Silk Trap. What Silk Trap does is it's one of those protect variants. So it stops any damaging moves. Doesn't actually stop status moves, but stops any damaging moves, and if the opponent makes contact with you, then they get their speed dropped. Now that's mostly for the benefit of your allies because you have 35 speed, so you're still not going first. Hey, it gets first impression. Spidops. I've heard of missions where you need your best agent. For missions where you need your finest agent, send Spidops. I think it's actually the worst in the entire list. At least it gets Sticky Web. You also have to keep in mind, this thing is in Gen 9, which is the first open world Pokemon game where you can go left or right. There is absolutely zero context where you would ever say that Spidops is the agent for the job. In fact, you know what? He's actually just gonna stay down here. He's been reformatting Viridian Forest. His very own Silk Trap. He's waiting patiently for somebody to pick him. He's waiting.
He's waiting. Still waiting. Guys, Silk Song someday. Still waiting. I think there were ways to have Spidops actually do something in a way that would have been flavorful. You could give it some sort of special aptitude with web moves. You could maybe make it that its attacks spiderwebbed the opponent and prevented them from switching out. Or maybe that its attacks actually applied sticky web. That actually would make it useful. Another thing that I think might be cool was if you gave it an ability, maybe call it Spy Network or something. It's got like some Tarantula minions, and then the first time an opponent tries to stat boost, the Tarantulas steal their stat boost. So it's like the move Snatch, except it's passive for one move, and you can steal their first stat boost. That would actually be really cool, I think, and that's also in flavor with like spies and secret agents, and it would be unique. And you know what? It still wouldn't make Spidops any good, but it'd be cool. You walked right into my web. You've heard of Madam Web, well, here's Mr. Web. Oh. How about this for a spy-themed ability? Spies are known for leaving notes, right? So how about when you send in Spidops, it automatically uses Memento. Here's something to remember me by. -2 attack and special attack. That would actually unironically be a lot more useful than Spidops.
Mementos, the Fresh Maker.
And that's our beginner bugs tier list. I hope you enjoyed these previous, I'm gonna guess 2-ish hours of infestation. I hope to catch you later. But for now, I'll have to say goodbye. Or, in the language of the bug type.
Vamos!
Bien hecho. Seguido.
Adios.
Adios.